All right, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for being here and taking time out of your day to hop on this webinar with us. We are super excited for the hour ahead, and we hope that you'll find this content to be insightful and applicable for you and your communities. Several housekeeping items before we dive in. Yes, this webinar is being recorded and will be sent out afterward. Number two, you can use the chat feature. A lot of you are, so thank you so much. We've got audience members from really all over the country. If you have a question, feel free to pop it in there. One Day is there monitoring the chat. And lastly, we will have a few minutes at the end to answer any additional questions. But let's jump into introductions. My name is Eric Varon, and I'm the VP of Client Success here at One Day. And I have been on the One Day team for a little over a year now. And I'm so grateful to be a part of the senior living industry. It is an industry that I have been working in for over 12 years. And I'll be moderating this panel with truly some of the most respected senior living minds today. And I'm so humbled and honored to be joined by this group here. Before we dive in, I'm going to do some quick introductions for our panelists in alphabetical order, starting with Chris Gay, the CEO and founder of Vitality Living. Chris's mission at Vitality is to empower seniors to age successfully, advance independence, and contribute to their health and well-being through creating vibrant lifestyles that inspire creativity, protect dignity, and celebrate experience. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Cindy Hale, Vice President of Marketing and Brand at 5-Star Senior Living. 5-Star is one of the largest senior living companies in the country, serving close to 22,000 adults per year. And Cindy is an innovator whose mission is to tenaciously work to create a new future for aging adults to live as carefree a life as possible. Hi, Cindy.
Hey, all. Thank you for inviting us here, Eric.
Of course. Third, we have Mr. Greg Roderick, President and CEO at Frontier Management. Greg has more than 2 decades of experience leading Frontier, who's ranked as the 13th largest senior living operator. Frontier's mission is to develop people and create a culture where exceptional service delivery is found in senior living. Thanks for being here, Greg.
Eric, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Our next panelist is Rick Westerman, Vice President of Sales and Marketing at Life Care Services. In his role as Vice President, Rick oversees the sales experience for LCS, leading the community-based sales force in developing strategies to help seniors make the decision to live a better life at a community managed by Life Care Services. Welcome, Rick.
Thanks, Eric.
And lastly, but certainly not least, Senior Vice President of Sales and Marketing at Senior Lifestyle, Janine Whitty. Senior Lifestyle's mission is to purposefully brighten and enrich the lives of those they serve with dedication to their core values. In her role, Janine oversees all of the sales and marketing efforts for Senior Lifestyle and manages a team of nearly 30 employees to achieve occupancy and financial goals. I am so happy you joined us, Janine.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
All right, so let's be honest. We could have taken up the entire hour of this webinar on introductions alone with all of the talent, innovation, and accomplishments we have represented here on this panel this afternoon. And on behalf of One Day, I just wanted to take a moment to say that we are so grateful to each of you for being our partner and for investing your time and effort in this conversation. Now, what's really the reason we're all here today? I believe we're all in the same boat. As one of the most pressing questions facing senior living leaders is, what will 2022 look like? And well, it's 2022 and we're already in it. And I already feel like there have been a few curveballs that have come our way. But at this point, after 24 months, it's safe to say that we've all come to expect the unexpected. And now it's a matter of deciphering how do we lead our teams and continue to innovate, knowing that there will be adversity and challenges, many of which are beyond our control. So the reality is everyone is having to adjust their sites to better thrive in this new era of senior living. So today we're going to take a deep dive into topics like employee retention, recruitment, operations, sales and storytelling, occupancy, and technology. So let's kick it off with our first topic. And I'm sure it's one that it's top of mind for everyone here. So according to a recent study of more than 2,000 senior care professionals by OnShift, it is reported that 96% of communities are facing staffing shortages. I'd like to pose this question to Greg, and after I'll open up to our other panelists. But given these staffing shortages facing senior living, the employee experience is becoming even more important. How is your organization prioritizing retention, and what strategies are you seeing the most success with?
Yeah, you're right. This is a major topic for all of us on this call today. Last year, we experienced, just like everyone else, real challenges using agency staffing and whatnot. We took a deep dive, and we are doing so much of the same that we used to do with beautiful employee lounges and trying to keep our wages going along with everyone else and all those things. We've had to really pivot to add a complete line item for quite honestly, we're putting $5,000 per community per month into a fund for recognition, for tuition reimbursement, sending people to seminars, more swag, just making the employee experience far better than it used to be. And we're marketing to employees probably as hard or harder than we are to new residents. We have we've increased wages, we have increased training, we have put a massive emphasis on building confidence, skills, and recognition within our communities. It's such a broad range of different ways to advance employees, to get people to come aboard and to stay aboard. And I know for a fact I'm not alone, and so many of all of you on this call want to do the same or are doing the same. And I think that as a profession, we are definitely grabbing hold of what needs to happen. We need to make sure that our employees feel appreciated, that are paid more adequately for the hard work that they do every single day. Because honestly, I'm at a building right now in Texas. Thank God I'm in Texas, right? But I'm out here in Texas, and these amazing employees we have here are working so hard, and they truly deserve a better experience. And we're doing that on a case by case, building by building, until everyone's on board. And for the last 5 days, I've been, I think, 16 buildings in 4 states. And I'm just out making sure that we are really working what we're doing, what we're saying we're going to do. And I'm out there checking it myself.
That's great. Thanks, Greg. Chris, do you have any insights?
Yeah, so I'll just build on what Greg said. I think it's interesting we go into this year. Let's face it, staffing and finding good people was a headwind before COVID. COVID just accelerated and exacerbated what was already an existing issue for the industry. We knew we were going to be short on good people to work in the industry. And so I think, as Greg said, I think every company that's really tuned in is doing things like Greg's company's doing, like Vitality's doing, like all the companies on this panel are doing, to try to focus more on people. I will tell you, we at our planning meeting for 2022, I said we have 2 initiatives: sales and people, and that's it, right? And part of that perspective is, from a global level or macro level, doing things more to kind of create a better experience for people, right? All the things Greg mentioned, we're looking at very similar. Like, what can we do to make sure benefits are more attractive to people? How can we make sure we communicate better? How do we make sure people understand our culture and our core values? But then if I think about this audience, I'm sure there's some executive directors that are listening in, and I will tell you, it still goes back to what you do at that ground level. And I would ask all of you to consider, if we treated every employee and every potential employee like we do a prospect, a lead, or a potential resident or resident, we'd have different outcomes. And we're really challenging our teams to start thinking that way. And how do we make the experience better? And what I find is, where I have leaders, executive directors who are engaged daily, spending some time every day, not just in the selling zone, but in the people zone, and creating culture and really digging through and really making a difference. That's the first piece. You got to have that. And then if you add on to that the pieces that Greg talked about, and I've talked about, and all of us on this panel could talk about, we can get there. But we have got to start really treating better people better and attracting more people to the industry. That's the big thing that is the challenge of today is you can go out and get a job doing something a lot easier than what our caregivers do every day. Our caregivers do really hard work and make as much or more money. So we've got to show them the differentiator we have is the purpose and the difference. And I believe people still are attracted to that. We got to do a better job of showing them that and supporting them in that nature.
Thanks, Chris. Rick, I saw you came off mute, so.
Yeah, to echo this, we were talking about people the last 2 years, right? And we were really trying to focus, and this has gotten worse and worse. I don't know if you guys saw that the big headline for November was we had the most US resignations ever reported in November. I dove in a little bit to go to healthcare, and we're up 37% November year over year in healthcare for resignations, new record. That's up 10% month over month. So if you're not taking this seriously, I know we all are, but Greg and Chris had great points on some of those tactical things they're doing at a corporate level. At the community level, a lot of sales team members on the line right now. Be there for your people, right? Send those thank you notes more than ever. Go out of your way to congratulate people for a job well done. We're a people serving people business, and that means so much to your fellow employees. And I think you all know that. Chris started hitting on it. At LCS, we really tried to own that recruiting process and make it more like our sales process, roll out the red carpet to welcome our new employees, block and tackle better on our onboarding, making sure we're hitting that every time. And I'd say, you'd see headlines like this too about this is the great resignation. It's a big challenge for us as an industry, but try to see it as an opportunity, right? For those EDs in the line, when you have turnover, and you will, and you are, just try to take that extra couple of days to make sure you're making that right hire for each of those positions, because you're going to thank yourself time and again in 3 to 6 months when you have an awesome team member. So that's what we've been trying to do is, internally, Eric, with regional talent and sales training talent, we've made some really cool hires. And it's doing that deep discovery and finding out what's going to make them happy in the long term. And if we have that opportunity at LCS, we're going after them, and we're going to try to bring them to our company, and we're going to be better for it as a result. Same thing with our frontline staff, and sales talent out there is another big opportunity. There's so many talented salespeople burned out, done selling widgets. Come to senior living. I mean, we should be flying that banner. And I've had a blast interviewing some super talented sales and marketing directors that they're not happy, and they want this mission. They want a mission like ours. And so we have a lot to sell. We just have to bring that to the candidates that are coming, make great hires, all buy in as a team, and do the right thing through the onboarding process.
That's great, Rick. I love that you all are talking about also the importance of storytelling and telling your story and differentiating your organization and how to do that and to differentiate yourself. So I think that's so powerful. And I think after a few of the conferences from last year, we heard a lot about the importance of telling your story and using all of the tools available. So Janine, I don't know if you have any insights on this.
I always have an insight on something.
All right.
No, I mean, yes, right, to all of those things. But I think we are probably leaning and thinking maybe a little closer with Chris on how do you make it meaningful? Because we're talking about a career, regardless of what position you start in, the idea is that you're trying to track to something. So I think what I saw the most rise coming through from our organization was a big focus on flexible staffing patterns, specifically for caregivers and dining staff, and trying to figure out how can we demonstrate and show that we care, that you have time for your life, time for whatever is important to you, because the work has gotten harder, right? You're doing meal service delivery, you have call-offs, you're working doubles. It creates a pressure, right, on your personal life. So that's been a big thing for us. Definitely enhanced greatly onboarding protocols, again, specifically more on the caregiver and dining staff side, just like trying to put meaning into this, right? I think in the past, we all have training, but do we put meaning behind what it is when you're going to be a server? Or is that just that notion you get in orientation on day one about how great it is to be here and what you're doing? But to how do you draw that out? So the other thing that we've been working on is a much more intentional career path when we're looking at CNAs, med techs, nurses, and making sure that those opportunities include, something around education, ability for certifications. I think that's how we want to try and demonstrate to this employee, we're glad you're here and we want to see you grow here. And I think we've always felt that way. And I just think, like to Chris's point, this has made us do a better job at it. It's something that's just going to matter. And I don't think it's something that any of us will let go of when this ends.
I agree. Cindy, do you have any insights on this you'd like to share?
Well, yes, thanks for asking. First of all, I agree with everything everybody says, and we're investing an awful lot into our number one value, which is people first, including a new chief people officer. But I guess I want to say one thing that we found is we get mired in what we don't have. Our field is beaten down every day. It's a slog. I mean, this is a slog. But when you can step back and think about all that we can offer, what we do have, what the power of being able to change a life every day, that whole thing, one man's trash is another man's treasure. The grass is always greener. If you are working for widgets or something that has no deeper meaning than making $1 every day, and you get to move to change someone's life, and we can build that up and reinforce why you matter. And that's a lot of where we're focused as a company.
That's wonderful. So I thought we'll transition to a new question. Would love to get everyone's thoughts. I'll open this up first to Rick, but the most recent NIC data showed continued occupancy growth in Q4 of 2021, which is encouraging. But the expectations of the customer coming into the market continues to evolve. How do you see the sales cycle changing with the new consumers looking for seniors housing?
Yeah, great question. I think when I think of the new cycle, right, I'm hyper focused on what's going on in 2022. And then furthermore is what's happening right now. So, as many of you should be looking at your data that are on this call and saying, wow, I'm getting a lot of inquiries. It's a great month right now. A couple stats from LCS is we had 2 of our best inquiry days that we've had in over 2 years. So some really good top of the funnel trends in our sales process that show, hey, this consumer is coming back. And even in the midst, I'll add, of Omicron and some of the biggest cases we've ever seen. So that's different than what we saw in other periods where when we had spikes in COVID, we started to see fewer inquiries. So I've been really, really pleased early on that we're seeing that big spike. So that's been a great trend, I think, for our industry and our continued recovery as an industry. December finished really big for us at LCS. I'm kind of blown away with our sales team's efforts to finish the year. And that's just not what we saw previously in this pandemic when we had this kind of caseload. So I think some good trends there. The alarm bells have been going off for me this month of coming off the holidays. And now all of a sudden we're not getting visits, right? So we're having to look at shifting again of how can we're getting inquiries. People are raising their hands, they're doing their research in the midst of all of this COVID that we're faced with. Yet we're not converting to that next level. And so that's been our big focus right now on this cycle is like, hey, let's handle this cycle by cycle, variant by variant. I hope we don't have to keep saying that later in this year, but that's our big focus. And so at LCS, we're like, how do we get back to, if they want to come in and we're open for business and we can do it safely, we want them to come in and we have to convert more of those inquiries. If they can't, how do we utilize this excellent tool called One Day, for example, to really help them experience our community, or better yet, do a face-to-face and do something virtually, right? And so we got out of that habit and we're getting good at it. We're excited about the future of how we were going to virtually sell, and we're not there yet. So right now it's like we have to make that shift again so we can grow and we can take advantage of these inquiries coming in, and hopefully that they keep coming in, but convert while we can and get these experiences, these families in to experience our property and help them move in and live a better life.
That's great. Congratulations on your great achievements and great months. I think that's amazing for you all. Testament to you and your leadership. Janine, I know you just came off, so I'd love to get your thoughts too.
Well, it is a sales question, so I feel energized. I was looking at length of sales cycle, and I was looking at 2020. And what was interesting, I mean, I don't think the first half of 2020 was any kind of awesome success for anybody from a move-in perspective, but as like the year trailed out, the cycle was really compressed, which I was surprised. I guess maybe to an extent. I mean, think about, these are probably the people who were already compromised prior to the pandemic and then got caught in this delay and then understandably concerned about coming in. So that was a real short cycle. And then I looked at 2021 and it lengthened a tiny bit. There was still a lot of urgency in that cycle. I'm going to suspect, you know, there's still the folks that waited a little too long. That's probably always going to be the case. But then we had so many incentives driving through these markets, right? So we globally time activated every market. And so, I mean, it was helpful, right? Because it helped people make their decision. It got them into a safer, better place, getting into their next chapter. I mean, we look at since the vaccine came out, I think those real deep fears with the customer, at least what we're seeing, seems to have soothed a little bit. It's not gone, right? It's a natural concern and it should be. But that panic seems to have like evacuated some of the conversation and at least got to a point where we can manage that fear, concern, possible negative sentiment just in the regular sales discovery cycle process. So that's promising, right? That we had this new spike happen, but the inquiries are still coming and our tours are still coming. So what I hope to see is that continues. I think we're always going to be talking about safety protocols and safety measures, but maybe not with the megaphone that we had to use just to get people to inquire again back in 2020.
Great. Greg, Chris, or Cindy?
Yeah. I just, good comments both by Rick and Janine. Obviously a lot to unpack here. We've seen some very similar results like Rick mentioned at LCS, where we had surge here, had some really good growth towards the end of the year. I think that is a lot of pent up, people getting out, people feeling safer. I do think, 2022 really, I do feel like, I said this in 21 and I was completely wrong, but 22 is the year that we learned to live with COVID. And so Janine just made a comment about safety protocols. Those should never go away. If we kept masking and some of those protocols in place during flu season, I think we'd have better outcomes during that. That can be just as detrimental to our business at times. But I think what they'll do is they'll get behind the curtain, right? It'll just become the expectation, it'll just become the norm, be less shocking, right? I think it's starting to kind of get to a point where we're living with COVID. And to my point on that is I think we're going to start, the one thing the adult decision maker has realized is mom or dad alone, socially isolated, is worse than maybe even getting COVID at this point. I think people are realizing that psychological and social disconnect can be very devastating to an older aging adult. So I think what we offer truly can help people during hopefully we never go through another pandemic like we did here in the last 2 years, but I think we can really tell the story that what we can offer can really make a difference. And I think we've got to be able to show that through the socialization that still occurred. Even when people were isolated, they still had better connections than if they were home. One day, I'll put one in, Rick did it, I'll say it like the one day platform is a way to stay connected with people and keep communication going in a way that's wasn't around 10 years ago, right? And so that's good. I think we can also show that we were safe. Yes, all of us on this call in some way, shape, or form had some form of outbreak or something happen in our buildings. But I'm proud of our buildings, even where we had several that had very bad outbreaks in the peak. They still managed it very, very well and kept people safe. And so I think we've got to make sure we separate and show our potential customers that we have created a safe environment. And then the third thing I would say is to our teams internally, all of us are in different aspects of access, right? The world is open or closed a little bit different depending on where you are geographically. But when pent up demand stops, what's going to hurt us is that lack of outreach that's not been happening for the last 2 years. I'm a firm believer, paid aggregators are not going to fill your building. So if you think of Place for Mom and Caring.com are your referral sources only, they're not going to fill your building. Digital media is great. We're big on digital. It's not going to fill your building. What's going to fill your building is a combination of those two, but then a very strong outreach. And so I would encourage you, depending on where you are, if your market opens up, do it safely, do it smart, do it strategically, but get the outreach going too. We got to get out to people. And I think that's where technology can help, because some of those home visits can be done video wise, maybe opposed to in person. You can do video ins to medical offices and other places. But I think it really is important. And I would also say one more thing, expand your outreach network, because in more than any other time in our history, religious priests, pastors, rabbis who are trying to help, they have connections to people that may need us. Estate planners, there's all these opportunities. We just got to get out there. So don't forget the good old fashioned outreach, because that's what's going to keep the pipeline moving forward.
Cindy or Greg?
Well, I think one thing that we're seeing is that we can't look at past trends for today. So for example, you really can't look at 2019 or even 2020 or 2021 in January, because we're just facing environmental factors, right? Or what's happening in our country with the pandemic and the peaks and valleys. Now it's Omicron. So I think being nimble is like a super important thing, and being able to adjust moment by moment. Last week, senior living search nationally wasn't up, and so that's kind of funny. It's January and it's supposed to be up. So supposed to be is really, I guess, a word that we can't really use anymore. And we have to be able to be nimble. I also wanted to talk about ambivalence. Ambivalence is a really big thing. You make the call that moment you're thinking about it. And I think both the adult decision makers and the potential customer themselves, ambivalence can quickly set in if they hear one story about one friend and so I think it's important to keep bringing the positive benefits. Loneliness is an awful disease, so what's the antithesis of that is engagement. And I think we have to give people permission that this is better and this is okay, and reinforce all the positive points. Our places are the safest places. We all know that. People are better. They're going to live a better life with us. And the more we harp on that with things like One Day and videos such as that, this is what we have to offer can change lives. And sometimes it feels like, again, we're mired in the sort of day-to-day, but we are better and different. And I'd say that's true for probably everyone on the call. And we have to remind ourselves that, remind our prospects of that, and our team members of that.
So true. Greg, I have one for you. I'd love as a follow-up to this kind of conversation, with the downward pressure on NOI with employee costs and just COVID costs in general. How do you see incentive usage changing in building occupancy?
That's a great question. Probably not one that everyone loves to hear me say, but I'm very much against using too many discounts and too many incentives. I think we need to build value, which ties into what we were just talking about. Rick mentioned how the leads are up quite a lot, and they truly are. We're up about 250% from our low during the worst time of COVID. And people are, just like everyone's been saying, people look to us as they want us to be the expert. And when they walk in the door, when they make that phone call, they need to not only feel special and have an amazing experience, but we need to be confident and be the expert to calm, to reassure, to give them confidence that they're in the right location for their loved one. Utilizing social media has been fantastic. One Day, fantastic. I mean, we use One Day, and I know this is a time to plug your business, but we use it a lot for a lot of different things. But social media is the same way, showcasing the ability of senior living as a profession, how good we are at infection control, how we're all elevating our game in the world of hospitality. People need to see that we are, yes, we're going to live with COVID, like Chris said. I completely agree. COVID is here, just like the flu, just like pneumonia. We have to showcase how good we are at managing through it. And we need to spread the word. Also, like Chris said, outreach is critical. We need to get out to every type of business, letting people know who we are, how we're such an important member within the healthcare continuum, and how we are a vital fabric member of every single community where we are in. So I know it's a long way to say it, but I just think that we have huge opportunities in our industry, and to have so many people listening in today that share the same sentiment, we're going to have a great year.
That's great. I agree. So Chris, I as another operator would love to get your thoughts on the incentive usage and how is that changing potentially in building occupancy?
Yeah, Greg and I are totally lockstep on this. I'm not big on long-term discounts. I think more than ever in our industry right now, and all of us have experienced it, we've seen incredible inflation in wage, right? None of us on this call or on this webinar have not had to do something with wage increases at some point in some building or across the board. We've seen incredible, and that doesn't go away, right? We're not going to be able to wake up in 2023 and say, hey, I know we gave you X increase, we're going to pull that back. It's not going to happen, right? That's here to stay. So that's a cost that's accelerated faster than we anticipated. I think we've seen, increases in food, in insurance. Some of those may level out, but like anything, right? Usually you got to expect those costs to continue. So I think if you start getting into the discount game, when you talk about this is still a business, right? And by making the business valuable allows you to build the business and do more for the business. And so if we start long-term discounting and incentivizing too much, we really erode value. And when you erode value, the only way to make that value back up is either go back and to what I think is not the right thing to do exorbitant rate increases. So now you've kind of given someone a discount and now you're kind of retrading them after they've moved in, for lack of a better term, and or make expense cuts that get very difficult in our business. We all know there's certain standards we need to have. Yeah. So I think it's really more about maybe short-term. We do a lot of short-term stuff, burn off incentives, things that give people a little bit of an urgency to move in, right? Maybe you get your birthday month off free. I think that stuff has a place, right? Because that's a short-term and it doesn't hurt your business on long-term value. But if we continue this discounting deep beyond what it costs to take care of our residents, at some point that equation just doesn't work. And so I do hope one of the pros and positives that comes out of what's been a really tough and negative 2 years is the operators see the value in not long-term discounting. The airline price wars do not work in this industry, so we don't do it. And we stand behind that. I'm finding now it's easier more than ever to sell that because I think the consumer is dialed into, I'd rather pay for quality than price. And if you have a consumer that all they care about is price, they probably don't care about the care their loved ones getting. So it's not the kind of customer we want.
Thanks, Chris. Rick or Janine or Cindy, do you have any insights on this you'd like to share?
I'm completely in line with the two gentlemen. The long term doesn't work. I think we all ran pretty heavy last year and now we're digging out, right? And to Chris's point, you can't do it all through, in-place rent increases. And I think the short-term stuff, it's always been there. It's always going to be there. It's a mechanism to drive a lease date. It should never be what makes someone choose you, which I think is where I think we teetered in some dangerous ground as an industry last year is, I think we all saw it, right? Incentive requests chasing the competitor down to the bottom. We backed off of that. So we can't do that. Forget the financial ramifications. That's a disaster looking at it from that perspective. Once you devalue a community in the market, good luck. It takes years to repair that stuff because it's the reputation, right? You're always on sale. And that's not fair to the incredible staff knocking themselves out to provide the care. Why would we discount what that is? That doesn't make sense to me. So I think the incentives will stay there. I think we all took a certain amount of survival mode. I think in the beginning of last year, it was a little reactive, right? They're doing this, let's do this. Saw a lot of that, needed to calm that down. I think we did a good job and backed off of some of that. And we're just not trotting down that path. The burn-offs are fine, but it's all value because nothing about what we provide became less important. So the price shouldn't be less.
Totally agree. Rick?
Yeah, to go back to what Cindy said earlier, which I think is just a huge piece of our sales process right now, is that loneliness factor that our prospects are seeing. I mean, that's real. The world is seeing it in some way. And as we continue to lock down and Christmases got canceled and holiday plans got canceled because of this variant, it's worse than ever. And so as we think about discounting, I'm aligned with Janina. We're not discounting. We might be giving an incentive to try to land on that specific date, right? That to close at the end of the month, to get somebody off of not making that decision to making that decision. It's crucial for us, but we have to build value through the sales process. I saw somebody ask, how do you build value in a saturated market? And it's one, we got to do that great discovery, right? To get down to the crux, that emotional crux of why they're coming to us. What is that? And if it's loneliness, how do we resolve that? And being excellent in the sales process at demonstrating that to somebody who's going to live better with you, right? And so now they're going to be making the decision of, do I want to pay X to live better and not be lonely anymore? They're not going to be shopping around if you have done that job. They're going to come to you and they're going to live better. And that's the beauty of what we're doing. And so it can't be a race to the bottom on rate. We have to provide great services and care, and that's how we're priced today. And so we have to keep being excellent in the sales process.
That's great. And I think it goes back to value. I've heard you all share the word value. Cindy, I would love to kind of understand from you, because, selling value or articulating value is an art form that maybe some communities or senior living providers don't have that yet, right? They're still working through that. How does storytelling play a role in the way you communicate your company's value to prospects?
Oh, you hit my sweet spot. First of all, we're always balancing heart and pocketbook. I mean, always. And the bottom line is you win by selling all of it, and you lose by leading with price. And we all know that it's just such a short-ended stick. So storytelling, it has been our most powerful tool last year. And then measuring, using storytelling, we moved to a completely authentic co-created platform last year. And when I tell you how fun and exciting and awesome it's been, I'm fortunate to work with some of the greatest team of storytellers. And basically, I feel like journalists and detectives. So our team goes into a community and they get to know the residents, and they are co-creating a day in the life of. The residents are talking about their best part of the day, what they want prospects to know. And then we shoot it, talk about it. We leverage the keywords they use. It's interesting because the way we might look at take a phrase that's doing really well national on search and what we think it means. And then when we bring it to them and we hear, they're not thinking about the outcome, they're thinking about the experience. And so they want us to personify that more. We've been focused on the outcome. So this shared experience of explaining the journey, talking about what it feels like to live well, to not be lonely anymore. And that's where things like One Day and all of that can come in, because we're just the microphone for the people that are already in there and appreciating the better life they get to live because of this enablement. And so the more we move the story to them, and that's been an invigorating, probably our most positive thing in 2021. And it's beyond exciting to hear your customers tell their stories their way.
I love that we're just the microphone for their experiences. That's so brilliant. Anyone else have any thoughts on storytelling and how you're using it through communicating value?
I would just, and I love hearing Cindy's kind of what they're doing. I think that's one of the lessons learned. And we always talk about lessons out of COVID. I laugh and I make this joke all the time. Before COVID, I bought everybody video cameras. I couldn't get anybody to put anything on video. Now it's become such a medium. And so it really has shown us how powerful it is to storytell, whatever platform you use it through. And I think that is when we've talked about two issues. How do we attract more people to move into our buildings, and how do we attract more great people to work in our buildings? You want to get people excited. And I don't believe, like, you hear all this rhetoric about the millennials don't want to work or young adults don't. They do. They just want to work somewhere that's got purpose and that's got meaning. And if you don't give them purpose and meaning, and I have a couple of young adults, they'll go take the highest dollar because they're like, well, if it doesn't mean anything, I'll just go get paid money. But if it means something, they'll stick around. And you want to really get them connected. share the stories of the people who live in our communities, and let's start showing that side inside. Because I think sometimes in this industry, we get caught up in Mrs. Jones who lives in this apartment, who gets her shower this time of day, who gets her meds this time, opposed to Mrs. Jones, who was a teacher for 30 years, had 4 children, learned how to ski at 50. There's some of those things. So the power of storytelling can have such a positive impact on not only your sales piece, but your people experiential piece. And so it's a lesson that it really has just resonated with me. And so I'm thankful for platforms like One Day to be able to do more of this. They make it a lot easier. I could never do as good of videos without you guys.
Thank you. All right, so I'm going to pivot to tech stack because I think it's interesting. A lot of being a tech company, the trial and error period of finding the right technology stack is front and center in senior living, with really a focus on marrying healthcare and hospitality. And I know, Cindy, this is something you're working through right now. How do you see the tech stack and community technologies changing over the next 24 to 36 months?
Are you asking me to kick this question off?
Yes, I am.
Oh, gosh. Well, I think this is a both and, honestly. I mean, we need it. We're integrating it. We're spending a lot of time, money, journey, working through all of it. And we have to talk people at the community, the folks at the community level, the importance of leveraging these tools and what it's going to mean to them in the end. So we know what works. But boy, it's hard to teach an old dog new tricks. But once you get them to bite, once they taste that piece, that peach, that's all you need. It's like building trust with a prospect. You get them in to appreciate the technology, understand the power of One Day, or for us, our CRM systems and the plethora of other tools we have, our design tools, all of that, and have everything integrated together and explain to them that it isn't a big black hole. And once they can start to see that, that's when we're really winning. It's like the point you build trust with a prospect, right? And we have to do the same thing with our field. And I'm not going to lie, we're working on this really hard, because having people appreciate technology, it's hard, but we're getting there. And folks like One Day, thank you for being there and making it so easy for people to use these tools and help us help them be better.
Thank you. Greg, do you have any thoughts on this, the tech stack?
Yeah, the tech stack. We've been very involved in looking at different ways to actually create a better business environment for our team members, where we have technology we're using now that where it eliminates redundancy. So where in the past, a business office manager might be doing 6 or 8 hours of just paperwork, is now down to a few hours a day where they're just inputting stuff, like data, where it then feeds into multiple different payroll, service planning and assessment, different avenues of our business. Utilizing business intelligence software to identify where we can save money or how effective we are in different aspects of our operation. Utilizing One Day, Voice Friend, and other ways to mass communicate for infection control or reaching out to families or physicians. There's just a lot of different things that we're using and looking into, for example, artificial reality. For staff development, for resident engagement, for brain teasers. We are looking at all types. I've even got friends in the business, which I consider all of you family essentially, but the friends in the business who are using robotics. We're seeing robotics deliver meals to apartments, which I find to be very interesting and compelling to look into. So I'm just looking at all types of different things like that. Trying to keep my mind. I'm almost 54, so I'm kind of getting to that point where it's like, oh gosh, what are we doing? But it is intriguing. I have to admit.
That's great. Rick, I saw you came off mute. Do you have something to add about tech stack?
Yeah, I think we've been in just an ever expanding industry in terms of the technology we're buying. The pandemic definitely accelerated that, and now we're hiring all these people who know how to use even better technology that they used at previous companies that they're bringing in. So we're really in a pretty cool position right now as a space where we didn't have those people who knew how to use technology, and now we do. And so I think this landscape in the next 5 years is going to be pretty incredible. I do think, some of the big players, many of us use Yardi. I don't see shifts away from big partnerships like that necessarily, but a lot of the smaller tweaks that we can make to make resident experience better. Greg mentioned robotics for delivering meals. It's like, how many people in this webinar have a robot vacuum? I mean, I do, and I love that thing. I mean, it's awesome, right? And so how do we not have, hundreds of those that we're leveraging as an industry in any given community? So I think there's a lot of opportunity when you get on site, and some big growth coming up.
That's great. Thanks, Rick. So I thought we'd to be respectful of time. There are some questions coming in on the chat. So I would love to kind of follow up with a couple of questions there, where someone said they wanted to know, is anyone considering mid-year increases in rent?
I'll talk about that briefly. We look at rental rate increases as we need them. We typically do ours in January of every year, but we definitely do a market rate increase every July, as well as an existing resident increase every January. But we do look at, like, let's just say, for example, the 2-bedroom apartments are all full and the 1 bedrooms are 80% full. We might increase the 2 bedrooms, and we might slightly decrease the 1 bedrooms in order to give lift on the 1 bedrooms and to maximize the rental rates for the 100% full units.
Great. Anyone else have thoughts on that?
Yeah, so we primarily do anniversary rate increases, opposite what Greg does. So when the resident's anniversary comes up, we do the rate increase. So in theory, we have talked about looking at where markets are and what's going on, and those may ebb and flow, but I don't think they'll be extreme. We also are very aggressive with market rates. We not only look at them usually every probably quarter, or at least twice a year, but we also look at real estate within the business. And so I think if you start thinking about your building like real estate, when you run out of a unit type, you should push the market rate. So we, at a minimum, anytime we have a unit get to 95% or higher, we increase that market rate $100. And why I like that is we tend to, in this business, focus on the annual increase to the existing resident. That's a customer that's already said yes. That's a customer that bought into us, and we're trying to tax them higher versus someone who's not even said yes to us yet. So I always like to go after more aggressive market rates, knowing that you can pull those back if you find you've gone too far, and try to offset, because I look at it as, if we can push market rates. So if you've got 1 bedrooms that are full, push them by $200. If you can't sell for $200, maybe you sell for $100. You're still $100 a month, $1,200 a year ahead of where you started. And that may help you not have to put all of that needed increase onto an existing resident who has already said yes, already joined, and bought into what you're doing.
Yeah, we do the same thing, really just looking at it by product type, unit type inside of that care level. But I think the value in that, I think it can be a bad feeling for a salesperson in the community to get their new rates, and the lift is huge over the current year, right? You kind of go, whoa, but they fought for the rate they were getting, right? And then you tack on $450. There's a psyche break that kind of happens sometimes, versus if you start to flood it in as the inventory fills, making sure that each quarter you go back through and make sure that what needs to be lifted has been lifted, and test some of those increases out, especially if you didn't budget the increase and you find that you stubbed your toe on it, you need to back it out. You've done no damage. Just go back to the market rate and retest again, maybe in a different way. But I like having it flow. Then that year over year increase isn't such a kick in the teeth when on the sales side.
Rick?
Yeah, typically similar cadence to the rest of the group for reviewing, our pricing on site. We did launch a pricing task force team. So really focused on just trying to optimize our rates in any given property with some really key focus markets that, maybe are presented with new competition. So when we budgeted, we looked at market rates and internal rates a little bit different than how Chris was saying it. We said, okay, let's set this next kind of really in-depth rate review to see how everybody else moved, right? Because some of the new competition coming into our markets have undercut us. And so how do we remain competitive in those markets? Well, we got to go back and keep looking at it because they are going to come up. They can't operate down there. They're doing that strategically. So how can we time that right? And then the optimization is huge. And I think, we'll all say we're doing it really well, but I think that's where the big opportunity is still there for us. That's why we have a pricing task force team, because some of our communities, the way they were priced, and then shifts from operators that came in, or asset manager, or owners initiatives, they're wonky at times. And, I've taken some communities over from Brookdale, and they did that pricing symmetry project they had where it was real-time pricing. You take it over and wow, we have to reprice this entire building now because it was however they turned off pricing symmetry. We have to go reprice it. So there's a lot of noise there that once you get under the hood, you start to see it. And there's I think some really big wins that the EDs on the line can have just by, hey guys, did you not know this one has a patio with a door on it so you can let your dog out? I mean, that's way better than the one on the second floor that just has a patio with a view of the courtyard. So I think some big wins for our industry are still there.
That's wonderful. So as we get close to time, the last question I have for each of you would be, in one sentence, what advice do you have for senior living leaders right now?
I can jump in. We're awesome. I mean, I don't know how else to say this, but the people on this phone are here because you care. And we have a lot to offer, and we know we can help people live better. And I think we have to stay the course and be honest and really balance the true values that we provide and listen more to what people are authentically saying and meet them where they are. And if we do that, there's plenty of people for all of us. And we have to believe in ourselves. So that's really my word to the wise.
Thanks, Cindy.
I'd say, this is Greg, I would say invest in your people while advancing your services, meaning build confidence, advance them in building training programs, recognition programs, while at the same time, elevating your hospitality and bringing in fantastic healthcare and community partners, and becoming more of a center for fantastic senior living, while having amazing, sticky employees come around, want to stay on board, and just love what we do.
Thanks. Chris?
Janine was on mute. You go ahead, Janine.
Oh, sorry, Janine, you're good.
Well, thanks. This was actually hard to get down to the narrow, right? Because I'm with Cindy. Like, this is an incredible industry, and it's something to stick with, and it brings so much value. There is, we went through a lot, and I never think that if you go through something difficult, it should ever be in vain. So we're taking the opportunity, and I would encourage anybody else to, whatever this new norm is, there's an opportunity to go back to ideas that we probably chucked 8, 9, 10 years ago because they didn't make sense. We might be in an environment where we're thinking about it differently. And I see a lot of fancy strategies that fly around, right? Like, oh, and we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And I said, did you check if they answer the phone when you call, like after you were an inquiry, before you get fancy, right? So the foundations, the basics are incredible. And we just got to keep going back and pulling those older ideas forward and see, what does it look like now? Because there might be some solutions available.
Great.
Go ahead, Rick.
All right, Chris, I'll let you back clean up. Yeah, I think it's, I was talking to an executive director on my way to work this morning, and you can just sense some of that. Oh, like the staffing crisis, the labor crunch, many of our teams not feeling as appreciated as we want them to feel. So I'd say just keep doing the right thing and keep doing it every day. And it's way harder some days than other. It's way harder in seats that aren't ours at the community level right now. And so just keep doing the right thing. And with that, you'll take care of your people. You'll really focus on what's important and having those tough conversations when they're needed, but keep doing the right thing.
So Erica, first I'll say you should have said a closing statement, not sentence, because that was never going to happen with any of this group. I'm going to date myself here and go back to any 80s music fans. My opening statement would be, don't believe the hype. And what I mean by that is, first and foremost, you all did an amazing job through an incredibly tough 2 years. And there's a lot of out there that maybe healthcare didn't, and we did. You kept people safe. You kept residents safe. You communicated. You did all the things right. I think don't believe the hype, because no matter what, I think we've been through the worst of this. I think, and we survived it. And so we're going to see these reactionary. Omicron's the latest one, where everybody wants us to go back to the dark days. And we've already built policies, procedures. We've already done the things that we know we can do now to react the right way. So don't think this should slow us down. And then don't believe the hype that this industry's changed. There are still the demographics that existed before COVID happened that drew so many people to this industry to invest in it are still there. People are still aging. The aging population is now going to outpace the younger population, right? Baby boomers are starting to age into our customer bank, and what we do matters. When we do it right, it makes a difference. So that would be my advice. Just don't believe the hype and stay focused on the great things you're doing. And we will be successful in your communities, in your companies, in this industry.
Thanks, Chris. And as Greg said, you consider us all family. I do as well. This industry is a family. And thank you, everybody, for participating today, for our panelists sharing their insights. Having access to your minds and your wisdom is truly incredible. And thank you to our panel, as well our audience. We had over about 300 people attend today. We will be sending this recording out to everybody who RSVP'd. It should be coming this afternoon. And again, thank you so much for all your time today. We hope you have a great rest of your day, and we will see you next time. Bye, y'all.
Thanks, Eric.
Take care, everybody. Thanks, Eric. Great job moderating. Good to see everybody.
Bye.
Take care.